He wouldn't tell me where it was. It was all very hush-hush. And we arrived at this massive house, and I saw on the wall Sahara computers. And he said, well, we are here because these people want to congratulate you. So I went in together with Hlaudi, and we were led into a dining room where the people who were present proceeded to congratulate me.
And who were those people who congratulated you?
I seem to recall that there was, I think it was A.J. Gupta, if I'm not mistaken, Atul Gupta, I think he was there as well, Duduzane Zuma, and Mr. Esma Hashule's son, can't remember his name.
All right, speaking there was the former group CEO of the SABC. So earlier, the Zondo Commission heard from current executives, then moving to the former CEO. For more, we're joined by SABC News reporter Manqoba Mchunu. Thank you for being with us, Manqoba. So I think this is quite a direct link and maybe unprecedented in terms of putting Hlaudi Motsoeneng in close ties with the Gupta family.
Well, of course, it is for the first time, but not surely for the first time. I think we've heard this sort of assertion as well during the SABC inquiry in Parliament in 2017. And of course, that first image, the link or the alleged link between Hlaudi Motsoeneng and the Gupta family. But I think this time, damning evidence from the former CEO saying that, she was taken by Hlaudi Motsoeneng by hand to go to the Gupta compound and where she met the Guptas. And of course, it was just not a congratulatory meeting only, but there were also remarks that were made. And of course, you recall that this particular commission is looking into how the Guptas had benefited somehow from SOEs, as well as, from state government departments. And of course, the SABC being an SOE, we do know that the Gupta family had also benefited through the TNA breakfast briefing on SABC News, as well as the New Age newspaper distribution that was done here at the SABC. And those amounts, they are over 20 million that only the Guptas had benefited from those two contracts. And of course, so this begs the question as to whether this relationship, taking the new CEO to the Guptas just a week after the appointment, does this tell us more about that deal and the deals that were made, and whether or not Mr. Motsoeneng was actually more involved, and that, his friendship with the Guptas or so-called relationship could have been the motive behind these contracts?
And she said she was specifically asked for something. Tell us those details.
Well, of course, she says that, after the intro, of course, she was congratulated. Amongst those who were there was Duduzane Zuma, the former president's son, as well as Esma Hashule's son, Thekiso, as well as A.J. Gupta, just to mention a few. And of course, she says, she was asked about the DTT. Seemingly, the Guptas also wanted a stake of the pie in the DTT. This is a move
to digital television.
Yes, that's of course.
And South Africa, SABC should be at the forefront of that, more channels available to everybody as well.
Correct, yes. Yep. And she says that, they seem to have lobbied to have a channel their TV news channel on the DTT platform of the SABC. And so her response to them was that, no, there will be a tender process that is still going to take place, and you'll need to follow those processes as well and tender as well. So it was not just pleasantries and congratulations, but there was actually some sort of point to it as well.
There have been claims and counterclaims in the past about these New Age breakfasts that were broadcast live on the SABC as and when they happened. Just explain the controversy and what she said about her involvement.
Well, of course, yesterday we heard testimony from the CFO as well as the CEO, Mr. Manqoba Mchunu, about the irregular contracts that were there. Contracts that, didn't follow supply chain management processes. And this was one of them, the TNA breakfast shows, because Lulama Manqoba says when she arrived, there was no contract in place, for such a big venture between two people, possibly a partnership. And in fact, it was not even classified between competitors. It was not even classified as, a partnership. It was just two parties working working together. And she says, of course, you know, she then started that process of getting a contract. But from the onset, you can tell something is not right there. Why is there no contract? Why was this not done the correct way? And of course, we do know that it was the Guptas who ultimately benefited 20 million and 900,000 worth of TNA newspapers. So the SABC, at a dire financial situation it was in at the time, benefited nothing from this deal.
And was covering its own broadcasting costs. Then one of the SABC 8 took to the stand. What did he have to say, and what's expected going forward?
Well, of course, I think he just affirmed some of the things that we've heard from the George Tlole report that you recall was released last month, you know, indicating a sense of fear. He says it's toxic fear and uncertainty that gripped journalists at the SABC during the so-called Hlaudi Motsoeneng years at the SABC under his grip. And of course, what he also unveiled was how Hlaudi Motsoeneng had even changed the editorial policy of the SABC to give him powers to be the editor-in-chief. We know that, of course, in any normal circumstances, it is the CEO that will have the powers of editor-in-chief. But under his rule, he says there was an addition to the editorial policy to allow him to be actually at the helm of the news division and to actually have the final say in the news division. And he says at that time, journalists simply, the message was, it's either you toe the line or you hit the highway. That was the message. And of course, she says, during that time, there was also political interference at the SABC at the instruction of Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng. Let's take a listen, Francis.
The acting head of news at that stage, Sebolelo Tlatanyane, came into my office and informed me that we could not report on any of the activities of the EFF, the Economic Freedom Front Party, at that stage. And when I asked her why, she said it was an order from the 27th floor. My understanding was that it was coming from the former CEO, Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng.
And that is a journalist, one of the so-called SABC 8, Futte Krige. Very quickly, what's expected tomorrow?
Of course, tomorrow we expect more testimony from those so-called SABC 8 journalists. And tomorrow we expect 2 of them to take the stand. And of course, they'll be highlighting, you know, some of the so-called interference that they experienced during that time.
Manqoba Mchunu, thank you very much. He'll be following the state capture inquiry for us. Griselda.